I feel like there are people who have been waiting years for just the standard Zowie experience in wireless, and that is clearly just not the case.
We just have so many options out now that I think a lot of people will actually skip this mouse.
I really think it's just going to look even worse for Zowie going forward.
Once upon a time, Zowie were the undisputed kings of gaming mice. But lately, they've fallen woefully behind the times. Heavy, outdated, overpriced, Zowie mice are some of the least appealing options out there, a far cry from their glory days as the premier esports mouse manufacturer. But what if I told you that Zowie might actually be back? They've invented a whole new mouse shape to try to get back on top. The U2 is Zowie's first real effort at a modern competitive offering. The question is it any good? Well, I've had months to test my note in secret, so there's a lot to say. Let's get into it. Okay, so really quick, please like the video, sub to the channel, and ring that notification bell. Also, we have merch. Head over to shop.thescore.com and check out our cool new Bader hoodie. It's a really well-made zip-up. I actually wear mine all the time, and it happens to suit my playstyle perfectly. Okay, so Zowie. If you are a regular viewer of Cracked, our live stream, socials, or just about anything that features yours truly uttering just about anything related to gaming peripherals, you probably know that I am a big fan of Zowie's mice. For years, their EC model, designed in collaboration with Counter-Strike legend Heaton, was the gold standard for any shooter player. The issue is that after being on top for so long, Zowie started to get a little bit complacent. While everybody else was going lighter, removing wires, and adding in all the top switches and sensors, Zowie had been recycling the same shapes over and over for years without adding anything meaningful. Even the most stalwart Zowie stands were switching to newer, flashier brands.
How many tournaments I won with Navi when I played on Zowie? And how many tournaments I won on Logitech G Pro Superlight? You can Google it, and you know what should you use.
Zowie was falling behind. The community knew it, Zowie knew it, and eventually started owning up to it.
Many have expressed concerns for Zowie, mainly why our mice haven't kept up with recent trends by releasing lightweight, paracord, or wireless mice. Some quite critical even.
Unfortunately, they didn't really do anything to fix it. Sure, they did eventually go wireless, but only with one mouse. And it was heavy, used an outdated sensor, and was way too expensive.
You have to give people a reason to spend this kind of money, and I don't feel like Zowie did that. Now for the Zowie loyalists, they're going to buy this mouse, right? Because they've just been waiting for it, it's wireless. But I think for most people, they've gotten wise, and we just have so many options out now that I think a lot of people will actually skip this mouse.
Now, I myself was a hopeless Zowie stan for years. There's just nothing that quite fits my hand like a ZA11. I am a ZA degen. I own an A, 2 Bs, and 3 Cs. It is, for me, the GOAT of gaming mice. Unfortunately, Zowie just doesn't seem to love it as much as I do. There's still no wireless version, and there's no clear indication that there ever will be. So it's kind of been hard even for me to not see what else is out there, you know? Play the field a little bit. The best replacement I've ever been able to find is a mouse I started using recently, Pulsar's X2H. I adore this mouse. It's light, wireless, and has that perfect hump towards the back type shape the ZA is known for. Unfortunately, it's just the tiniest bit too small. I've still switched to it full time, but I can't quite call it perfect, which left me thinking, all right, well, I guess that's it for me and Zowie. You know, I'll always love them, but maybe it's time for me to move on. That is until Zowie reached out to me, completely unprompted, and made me an offer I couldn't refuse.
Every time I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
So yeah, this requires a little bit of context. A few months back, there were these images of notable FPS pros using mice that didn't exist circulating on Reddit. Despite having Zowie logos, these mice weren't known publicly available products. Immediately, all of these mice fiends started speculating that Zowie was working on a wireless mouse with a new, never-before-seen shape and secretly sending them out to people for testing. As it turns out, they were right. I know that because I was one of those people. Now, To be fair, Zowie reached out to me long after they reached out to these pros, but they knew that I was a huge fan and wanted to give me a chance to test out their newest offering, the U2. Yes, spelt exactly like the band. So yeah, this is it, the Zowie U2. It is a medium-sized, ergonomic, non-ambidextrous gaming mouse designed specifically for claw grip. But what really stands out is the fact that it's wireless, weighs 60 grams, and of course, has a new shape. Now, we've had nearly 3 months to put this thing through the ringer, so there is a lot to talk about. Let's hand things over to the expert.
And now, the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
Hey look, it me. Considering this is a mouse video and Colten's probably off abusing aim assist somewhere, I will be your Sherpa up the mountain that is this mouse. Whatever, let's get into it. The Zowie U2 is a sort of cross between the ZA and S. The hump sits towards the back, which I love, and is broad enough that it's almost an exact replication of the ZA. The front, on the other hand, is where things get a little more interesting. It is a narrower, slightly more rounded off version of the S, which is supposed to help with hand positioning. You see, Zowie claims to have engineered the perfect shape. According to them, this mouse shape is scientifically crafted to provide the most naturally relaxed and accurate hand grip thanks to these indents on the sides. One is deeper than the other, which is meant to sort of lock the fingers into a grip that allegedly requires minimal movement to actually lift, aim, and reorient the mouse. And I have to say, I don't think it's just marketing jargon. I mean, it is. But I also think there's real merit to their claims. The U2 feels great. The exaggerated indentation on the left reduces the thumb angle, which in turn enables a faster, more organic clicking motion. If you actually look straight down through the front of the mouse, you can see that both sides curve inward at a pretty steep angle. And if you look at the bottom, you can see that it's really narrow. This actually leads to an effortless lift. The shape of this mouse is, in no uncertain terms, goated. It is a return to form for the kings of shape and a design that I think we're gonna see a ton of manufacturers start to knock off. Hats off to Zowie, man. Structurally, this mouse is a banger. As for everything else, look, I'm not much of an expert when it comes to the tech side of these things, but I talked to Niall and he said that the 1000 hertz polling rate and 3395 sensor it has are excellent. The front and side buttons have a very responsive click, and the side buttons in particular are actually in a really convenient spot. I mean it, these are the best side buttons I've ever used, ever. The wireless charging station is also really convenient in my opinion, since it's easy to use and prevents me from having to fish out the end of a cable every time I call it quits. The battery life on the mouse itself is excellent, insofar as I don't even think about it. Now, while it might sound like this mouse is perfect, I do have some problems with it. The scroll wheel is, well, it's a typical Zowie scroll wheel, which means it's not great. It is very squishy to press, which for me is a big problem because I use mouse wheel click to move the camera in League and Dota, and the intervals themselves are notched way too closely. What can I say? A Zowie mouse wouldn't be a Zowie mouse if the scroll wheel didn't absolutely suck. Alas, maybe next year. But the big problem with the U2 is the same issue I have with pretty much every mouse. It's too small. The U2 is a medium-sized Zowie mouse, which is fine since this was the first ever model and the vast majority of gamers need that size, but it is way too tiny for my hands. One of the main draws for Zowie is the fact that unlike any other manufacturer, they make every one of their mice in 2 or 3 sizes. And for 20+ centimeter handed lads such as myself, that is a game changer. For them to only release the U2 in one size is rough. I've used this mouse a lot and I really like the shape, but unfortunately it just can't be my main. The day they release a U1, I'm there. But until that day comes, if it ever comes, I'm going back to the ZA.
And that was the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
All right, so what does this release mean for Zowie? Have the kings reclaimed their throne, or is it still sitting vacant? Well, if you ask me, I think Zowie is back, at least for people with normal hands. The U2 is a first-rate offering in what is undeniably a very competitive market. It's suitably light, the wireless is extremely well implemented, the price is finally fair, and the shape really is out of this world. Like all Zowie shapes, just hold it, and you'll see what I mean. If Zowie keeps up these types of product releases, they will return to their former glory. The thing is, based on the last couple of years, that's a really big if. For now though, the U2 has everything a modern gaming mouse needs to be top of its class and then some. The gaming community called for Zowie to actually get with the times, and Zowie answered. The U2 may not be for me specifically, but it is very much the real thing. Just give me one that I can actually hold, and I'll be there day one. Check out our cool new Bader hoodie. It's a really well-made zip-up. I actually wear mine all the time and suits my playstyle perfectly. Playstyle? Did I write this?
You did write this.
My playstyle perfectly.
You called yourself a Bader.
Oh, I get it now. I lost the joke in my head where I was like, my hoodie suits my playstyle. I'm so okay, yeah. I was like, what the did I, what? Like.